odd one out questions. So in these questions you have to find a common rule, as it says here, and this is extremely important. A lot of people I see, or a lot of students I see, will just eyeball it and try and figure out which one looks the most different, but every question that you have here will always have a common rule that you can actually describe in words, and that will be the reason why there's an odd shape out, right? So if we carry on reading here, between the figures, and then you can figure out the odd shape. This will be the shape that does not adhere to the rules, basically, and that's it. You have to find a rule that will go across all 4 of the shapes, or all 4 of the options, and one of them won't follow that rule, and that's the only way you can actually have one that's odd. So here, a lot of people can see immediately that there's something odd about question number C, but I would say don't circle it until you can actually describe it, because you might be wrong. And the description for why it's odd here is, first of all, the circles are all different here, right? So there's no real rule there between the circles, but there is a common rule between the triangles. So you can see here, all of these triangles are the exact same size, and they're all equilateral, whereas this one is much longer. It's an isosceles because it's got 2 longer sides as well, and that in itself is basically enough for it to be odd, because everyone else is following the rule of the common triangle, whereas C isn't. Here you go, the common rule is the size of the triangle, or the length of the sides, whatever you want to say. As soon as you found that common rule and you find one that doesn't match, that'll do it. Yep, this is pretty simple. Here we come to a bit more of a complex question, and as we go down further we'll have more difficult questions, and I'll show you how to do these as well. But let's just go through the approach. It's going to be doing the exact same thing here. So it says have a look at all your options, and think about what the common rules could be, and then you might be able to identify it easily if you can see something. So if we're just gonna ignore this thing here that's saying it's odd, first of all just look at all of the shapes and see what's similar between them. So a lot of people will not do this section because it says odd one out, and you sort of don't think that you have to look for something that's similar between the shapes before you can figure out what's odd, and that really is the first step, is look for what's similar. And I see in all of these that they all have like this outline, then they have a white space, and then they have like an actual blocky shape inside, and you can see that for all of them. They've got that white space in the middle between it, and then they've got an actual shape in there. They've got an outline, a white space, and a shape. And you can see here, this one, it has a white space, but there's no circle inside it, right? If there was a circle inside it, that would make it follow the rule, and it wouldn't be odd. But that's why this is the odd one. You got a little mnemonic here that you can use if you're stuck. So this is actually useful. I wouldn't go to this straight away. The thing is, if you're struggling on this and you're stuck and you can't find a rule, this is when you use this mnemonic, and you can start trying all of these different aspects. So if I had tried maybe what I did there, that was a shape or shading rule that I found, because this one was missing a shape here. But if I don't find a rule about shape, I might want to look at the number. So you can see here, this is one of the rules, number. So what I might do is count all of these sides, and maybe there's a rule in the sides. Maybe all of them have a certain number of sides. That would be total. Number could be anything different as well. It could be the number of shapes there total. Not total, sorry, the number of shapes there are. So you got this shape and you got this shape. So that could be 2 shapes. Maybe all of them have 2 shapes. Obviously this is not the rule for this question, but that's what I'm trying to give some examples here. And the same thing with angle and color. Maybe all of them have black, whereas one of them has grey. Maybe some of them all of them have like a 90-degree angle, or maybe they have different patterns. And this is like a little toolkit that you can use after you've tried it yourself and you couldn't figure it out. So let's go on to another one of these examples. here, I don't see anything different with the shading, the sizing. I'm not going to go straight to angle, color, or pattern, because again, color and pattern aren't here. Angles is usually a last ditch attempt for me, because it's not something that comes up often. But what I'm going to immediately do is look at the number of sides here, because that's sort of the first thing that pops up to me. So if I just start counting the number of sides here, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you can see something's actually sort of popped out a bit there already. All of these have 4 sides, whereas this one has 5, and that can be our reason as to why A is odd. You might want to say that line thickness would be a reason, and you might say, I mean, if you're just looking at it without actually counting the sides, you might go with E because it looks like it's a bit thinner, the lines. But I think there's no real way to tell that this is specifically thinner, especially when you can't measure the width. Yeah, they are pretty similar in size, so I wouldn't say the difference there is exaggerated enough for it to make sense, and that's why as soon as you find like a different rule, like 5 sides compared to 4, 4, 4, I think that's a much stronger reason for A to be odd. So let's have a look at this one, and this one doesn't actually have any help so far. Again, if you look at the actual shapes themselves, they're all practically the same. The only difference here is between like where the circle is in the arrow. So when you're looking for a similarity between 4 of these, it's not going to be between the shading or the shapes or etc., because all of them have a similarity of that. We need to find a similarity that only 4 of them have and 1 of them don't. And if we just figure out like where the differences are, it's between the circle and the arrow. That means we have to look at the circle and the arrow. It's probably going to be where the rule is. So actually I'm looking at it already. When I was looking at C and D, I saw there's something similar between them, where the arrow is always pointing away from the circle. And now if I just look at the other ones, E and B, it's the same thing, but actually A has got an arrow pointing towards the circle, and that would be a good rule as to why A is odd, because it's not pointing away from the circle. And yeah, I think if we carry on here, these are some extra features that you could be looking for after you've used obviously the never sneak snacks into a picnic one. So MOPS is the second one, orientation, placement, symmetry. Again, the reason why this is like an extra section is because you don't see these as often. So you want to be going for the ones that are more common, which is obviously like number of sides, colors, shading, stuff like that. And then if you can't find anything, you use these mnemonics. So we've done that question. Let's go on to this one. Yeah, so this one is a bit of a different one. So if we're looking for like a similarity between all 5 of these options, there really isn't anything. Like, okay, all 4 of these, sorry, some of these have diagonals. So 3 of these have diagonal lines and 2 of them have straight lines. So that can't be the similarity between 4 of them. 2 of them have triangles, whereas one has diamonds and one has stars, one has X's. That can't really be a similarity. If we look at the number of things on the top, you can see we've got 2 of them that have 2s and 3 of them have 3s on the top. But I mean, if we come to a conclusion here, basically there is no rule here that will be similar across all 4 of them and only odd on one. So that probably means there's a rule system, like we say here. So a rule system is where it's a set of rules, probably 2, that is applied to all of them, and that's what's similar between them. They all have the same rule system, and one of them won't follow the rule system. So if we look at the rule system, what it could be, what we can see here, you want to connect 2 things. So I'm looking at the lines or the diagonals. They might mean something, whereas the straight lines might mean something. So if we look at what the diagonals usually seem to mean, actually we'd have to include this one. What you can see is the diagonals on 2 occasions, they mean that the top 2 objects, there's only two objects on the top, but on this one obviously there is 3. If we look at the straight lines, it means that there should be 3 objects on the top. And obviously it's a bit easy because you got this thing here already telling you that it's odd, but obviously if you didn't have that there, what you would be able to notice is that horizontal lines means that there has to be 3 on the top, whereas diagonal lines mean there has to be 2 on the top. Whereas this one, it has diagonal lines, but it has 3 on the top, meaning it's not following the rule system that we've come up with, and that would be again a good enough reason to say that it's odd. And yeah, we have one more example question here. I might do one of these questions from the below just to show you the same technique there. But yeah, let's do this example question. So I'm looking for a similarity between 4 of them. As soon as you start off, you want to look for a similarity between 4 of them, not 5, only 4. So if you look at, for example, the grey color, you got 3 of them have got the grey color, so it's close to be a similarity, but it's not on all 4, so we can't use the color, meaning the black and the grey is probably just a distraction. What else did maybe 4 of them have in common? Well, 3 of them have a rounded square, whereas 2 of them have a like a straight square. That's not good enough because it's not similarity between 4 of them. If we look at the arrows, all 4 of them actually have arrows that curve, right? So you got this curve, these ones all curve, these ones all curve, whereas this one is completely straight. So actually I think that would be a common rule, is that the arrow has to have a curve in it, whereas B doesn't have that, and in my opinion that would be a good enough reason for it to be odd. Alright, so to go through 16 quickly, we're looking for a similarity between 4 of them. As we said before, even though it's called odd one out, look for a similarity between 4 of the objects, and then you can figure out what the odd one out is. So because all of them have arrows and stars, we can't look at shape or size or anything like that. They're all the same. I'm going to look immediately at the number of arrows, because what I see is there's 3 here, there's 3 here, there's 2 here, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 here, and there's 2 here. So it's probably nothing to do with the number of arrows itself, but it could be maybe linked to the number of stars. So the number of stars is 3, 2, 2, and actually it's not linked to the number of stars itself, but again you can see from this layout, you can see it's linked to both of them together. So if we look at the number of arrows and stars together, they're always matching. So 2 and 2, 4 and 4, 2 and 2. Whereas B has got an option where it doesn't have enough stars to match the rule system here. So you can see basically a rule system just means when it's two or more similarities that are holding them together. In a normal question it would just be, or maybe all of them have 5 stars, whereas one of them has 4 stars. But the difference here, and if you want the answers and explanations, they are all at the back of the book. So what question are we at? Question 16. And there we go, I'll explain the exact same thing here. So each option has the same arrows and stars. The number of arrows and the number of stars are equal in each option. All options in this question obey the above mentioned rule except option B, which is why option B is odd. And if you get stuck on any of them, just go back to the back of the book and you can find the explanations. But yeah, hopefully that is useful for odd one out. And just the main thing to remember whenever you come across a question like this is you need to basically, although it says odd one out, your job is to find a similarity between 4 options. or however many options there are, minus 1, you know. And you should be able to write that similarity out in like a few words. So like in this one you can say, oh, all of them have 4 sides. This one you can say all of them. You can say here that all of them have, I mean, if they have a horizontal line they have 3, if they have a diagonal line they have 2, etc, etc. You can always explain the similarity in a few words, whereas explaining the reason why they're odd is a bit more difficult. But this is how you want to work it. You want to work it backwards.